Lights, action camera, folks.
Oh,
Good morning, everyone. I'll just read this first. As required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping, as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. Anyone?
You may want to say it's the real estate and open space committee.
Oh, Real Estate and Open Space Committee meeting. No one? Hearing no one? All right, I'll call the meeting to order. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome our guests. Can we identify ourselves, please? Yeah, come on up. With the permission of our committee, I would like to just change the order of the agenda, just so we can accommodate some of our guests who have other places they have to be. So if you don't mind, we could start with B on our agenda, review of properties of interest to the Water Department with Superintendent Dan Pelletier. Dan, thank you for joining us. I'd like to also not just talk about the property on Queen Anne Road, but also other properties that we've recommended to you in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And just see where we are with that. Bay Road.
Yeah, I don't know where you want to start. If you want to look at Bay Road, I know Dave and I had looked at a number of parcels, I think a few times over the last year or two. Yeah. So yeah, the parcel on Bay Road directly abuts our well field. So from the Water Department's perspective, you know, if it comes under the care and control of the Water Commission and or Conservation, seeing that property gets ultimately protected is really a benefit to us.
Now, have you approached the Board of Selectmen about any of these properties? Because we've recommended them. Conservation Commission has also recommended, so.
I had submitted a request to the Board of Selectmen about a different parcel that we discussed up off of Northwest Gate Road that is abutting our well 10. That request was to do initial test borings, because we're going to be looking at exploring to install another drinking water well. So we wanted to ask to do test borings on the Selectmen-owned parcel to see if we could find a well, and if so, then ultimately go through the transfer process.
But you haven't asked them about Bay Road or property on Chatham Road or Robbins Pond area?
I recall, I believe, submitting a memo. I think it was around the same time you guys had sent a memo to the Board of Selectmen making that recommendation. I think it was probably a year ago. Anyway, at this point, I know I sent a draft over to you folks to look at. I can't remember who specifically on the committee at the time.
Okay, because, I mean, after all this time, we've done everything we can do.
Right.
I mean, we'd
I
like
think
to.
the next step is getting a motion, either a consensus from the Board of Selectmen, if they're in agreement that the parcel should be turned over, and if they are, then going through the formal transfer process. I don't believe the Board of Selectmen's taken a position on those that I'm aware of.
No, I mean,
Kathy?
it's been presented to the board, it's been recommended by this committee and Conservation Commission together, that certain parcels be transferred over to the care and custody of the Water Department. And like Elaine said, it's sort of out of our hands now. I think it's up to the Water Department to push those through in front of the Board of Selectmen, if you want something to happen.
Yeah.
We are just an advisory committee.
We're done.
Right,
There's nothing
right.
more we can do. It's up to you to
Right.
move those forward. And we'd like to check that off our list of accomplished, so the ball's in your court.
Yeah, I'll follow up certainly on
Okay.
the Bay Road and the parcels up by well 10.
Dave?
Just for a piece of information, I did have discussion with Mike McCaskill a couple of months ago. and I mentioned the thing on Bay Road. And he told me that at one point, they had considered using that property as a recharge area, as an alternative to the Judah Eldridge property. And he was concerned a little bit about taking it out of that kind of flexible environment. That's just a point for you to consider. And I don't know what impact that would have on your well. It seems to me that that would be a pretty poor choice.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about water, so I would trust your professional judgment. Just let you know that was a thought.
And in addition, the property across from the water tower on 39, that
The-
little shaver property that we've talked about for a long
Right.
time.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's still work to be done on that. There,
There is, but, you know,
deed title search.
yes.
Yes, yes.
But it would be helpful if the water department had any interest in pursuing any of that property for whatever uses. It would be helpful, a push in the right direction would be helpful.
Yeah, and I believe I presented that to the Water Commission previously, and they were interested in if, the deed research was fruitful and it was something that the town could obtain, that we would certainly be interested in doing that. How that process goes is outside of my skill set.
Well, we've been working on getting someone to do that research. The interim town administrator's told me he has the name of someone he thinks might be able to do it. We certainly have the funding. We've had the funding for a few years now to pay for it. It was finding, the person to do it. And there just may be someone on the horizon. That's what's holding it up. But again, if we have more people clamoring for it to happen, it might happen sooner.
And that's a good segue really into the parcel on Queen Anne. Ultimately, the reason I believe me being at this meeting was prompted by the Water Commission's presentation to the selectmen. Alan had
Yes, and I'd just like to comment on that. We as a committee and myself, I only became aware of the fact that the selectmen had turned that property to this committee when I read it in the Chronicle. Never received any direct communication from the Board of Selectmen, which includes our liaison, saying the board would like real estate and open space to consider uses for this particular property. So, we had this on our agenda in December, and didn't come to any conclusion, but at the last Board of Selectmen meeting I was at, was brought up, and I was asked to discuss it again, thinking there may be other interests, other persons interested or have opinions on what to do with this property. So that was my invitation for you to be here, so you
Yeah, and
can present your case.
I prepared just a site plan, if I can hand it out, just so we're all
Sure.
looking at the same. There's one with aerial and one without.
I love pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So I put this together, again, just, it was really just kind of a quick, dirty feasibility, quick analysis. After Alan had presented to the Board of Selectmen and made the statement about this parcel,
Which parcel are we talking about?
We're
the
talking
pet
about
cemetery.
the former pet cemetery,
So, because I don't
276,
think people out there are gonna know.
276
Well,
Queen Anne
I-
Road,
Thank you,
former pet cemetery.
thank you.
So the Water Commission, after that meeting, had voted to have me look at if this would be a viable site to move the operations from 196 Chatham Road over to the former pet cemetery parcel.
Okay, so you're not just talking about placing equipment there.
It would be we really don't want to break up the staff, having the department, part of the department go to that area, part of it go to Chatham Road. I think there's importance to keeping everyone together, especially from management and oversight perspective. So the intent would have been to, or would be to move the entire operation over there. And that is primarily because we are parking our entire fleet on a well field. We have had trace detections of MTBE, which is a petroleum byproduct, at one of the wells that's right next to where all the equipment parks. Again, we just got results back the other day. We're really low levels. The minimum detection level for MTB is 0.5. We were at 0.53. So we're very, and there's no MCL in Massachusetts. There is one in California. They're very progressive, and it's 19. So we're again very low, but the trace amount is there, and the potential is there. If you know, we're driving utility vehicles through, you know, puddles when it rains. We don't have a drainage on the property. You know, all that agitation, water splashing, the equipments get greased. You know, when it rains, it's just not an ideal place to store equipment.
Okay.
So from a water well field protection standpoint, that's the goal. So what I did with the image that you guys have in front of you was I took the plot plan from the Registry of Deeds and just drafted that over the Google aerial, and the building and the magenta line there are the front, rear, and side setbacks. So the building that you see is, I took just for conceptual purposes the same size building that's on the DPW facility across the street, just to place it on and see what it would look like. So at first glance, it looks like the parcel would suit the needs of the department.
Okay.
So,
So there's sufficient room for a building plus storing all the equipment?
yes.
Is this a garage as well as the offices?
Yeah, it would be, again, this isn't on our capital plan, so if it were to be handed over to the water department, you know, would likely fall outside of our current 7-year plan. So as to the specifics of style of building, all the things like that, I mean, but I would anticipate it being likely a space, you know, a space building like the DPW with the offices within that footprint. Ideally, given the site and that we have, you know, multiple trucks, trailers, and equipment, the thought was if we could have the building be a pull-through, so you can drive in one side and out the other, so that we can house the vehicles inside. But again, we're many years out from.
Well, as an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen, you know, our job is to evaluate properties that are brought to our attention and determine the best use of the property. The usual procedure is to consider these properties, who would they be suitable for housing or recreation or any of the departments in town that might be interested in them. So far, you're the only department that it seems would be interested in this particular piece of property. It certainly isn't suitable for housing or recreation or whatever. And no one else has come forward to ask about using it for anything. So the position is either, you know, we recommend it that it be turned over to the care of the water department for you to use however in the future. There's a possibility they could ask for an appraisal and for the potential maybe of the town selling the property, which, you know, might not work. Or just keep it the way it is right now. We would need, I guess, a vote on that from this committee as to how to move it forward. Yes, Kathy?
Well, no, I was just going to say that, you know, I think that the committee would agree that it's not an appropriate piece for open space or conservation protection, recreation. It has no historic perspective. It is purely a piece of municipal property. And what the various committees or departments in town, you know, who would want to see what goes there, I mean, is really up to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
But to give them a little bit more detail, it's for the audience that's listening, 2.2 acres, and what's it currently assessed at?
$435,100,
Right.
and it's zoned industrial.
Mhm.
There was a claim at town meeting about the pet cemetery, oh, it's worth millions of dollars, which
Yeah.
I thought was an
Well, we looked up
exaggeration.
the assessed value of the properties on either
Right.
side of it,
Yeah.
which are smaller in acreage. They're about an acre compared to 2, and they have buildings on them. And their assessment was 500,000 or 600,000.
Yeah.
So we're not
Yeah,
talking a
there's
lot
no
of money
$1
here
Not just for
in
the-
terms of a sale to
Yeah.
bring in something for
So it's
the
not gonna bring
coffers.
a lot.
And I believe these properties were up for sale years back, and there was no interest.
Well, it was
Down the road.
at the- I don't know,
Yeah.
was it the non-interest, or was it the fact
They
that town didn't
just
want to
wanted-
sell it?
Right.
Yeah,
Because
didn't want to
Right.
give it
that
up.
came to town meeting, and town meeting said, no,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think this was that.
I guess what I'd like to know is, you know, in terms of the potential
Uh,
contamination and
435.
stuff. So,
One.
say the water department moved their facility, what would happen to the current water department land? Would it be a contaminated site potentially that would not have use, or?
No, we would still retain the parcels on 196. We would, because there's 7 wells on the property as well as a corrosion control facility. Whether the buildings were demolished or remained in place, I mean, that would be a vote of the board.
And there's no potential for, I don't know anything about, you know, trucks and contamination or anything, but, you know, sort of decontaminations, you know, areas within the parcel that, you know, could start to eliminate potential for further contamination? I mean, you know,
Yeah, I would say
clean
that.
off areas and drains and, you know, protective areas versus a whole new building?
We can't have like drains and drainage and ground and infiltration systems within the well field. So for like, we would have to have a tight tank. DEP a
Right.
number of years ago had us cement all of our drains so that they wouldn't work. There's only one well out of the 7 on that property that had the MTBE detection. We had the initial or the first detection, I want to say a year and a half ago. We did a second round of sampling, and the threshold went down, and we saw a decrease. And then this time, we saw similar to what the first value was. So, but again, that's only in one well field, or one well that is probably, there are 3 wells in the immediate vicinity. So if you drove into the office, there's a little loop around a garage, and there are 3 wells right there, and it's only one of those within, you know, a few hundred feet of each other. So it's not like a widespread contamination. It's
I guess my question is this like, has this been a priority of the water department? And if so, for how long? And, you know, if it is, where else have they looked? I mean, is this something you guys are pushing through? Because it doesn't seem like you guys move a little bit slow.
Yeah, so this, no, that's fair. So
Because
this,
these are the questions that you're gonna get
Yeah.
pushback on at a Board of Selectmen meeting,
right.
at a town meeting, you know, anything like that.
So I can't speak to the specifics of what they did prior to me coming on board. So it's been 5 years. It's kind of been one of those things that's always on the back of the radar, but we've been putting out bigger fires first ultimately. And where this parcel had come up, right now with our existing water department owned land, primarily all have wells on them, or they're within a groundwater recharge area. The objective is to get out of one of those. As you're probably aware, most of East Harwich is all a groundwater protection area. We have 40 acres there, but again, it's in the groundwater protection area. So to locate a site outside of the zone 2 of a well, you know, if the decision's made that this parcel shouldn't go to the water department and it goes in a different direction, it's still gonna be something that we're looking for, to relocate.
I think that should be your lead, though. I think you guys should start off by saying, you know, we've got to get out of the area of
Yeah,
the well
and
fields.
that's-
I mean, that's where you guys should start
Yeah.
off. And, you know, and then what's available to us to do that.
Right. And again, we need to get out of there. We have had an MTBE detection there. It's not something that we should wait until, you know, we're forced to get out of there. There's evidence that our vehicular presence on the property is having an impact. So the first detection was, I believe, just about a year ago. So it's really, this was the Pet Cemetery's property up until, I don't know, a few months ago, and they
But
took
was
it
only-
back and,
But it had been town property for a long time
Right.
before that.
and we hadn't had a detection before that. So, you know, it was, yeah, we have the vehicles here, we haven't had an issue. They've been there since 1936, and it hasn't been an issue. Now we've got a detection, it could potentially be an issue. So, you know, we've been almost 80 years without having a problem there, but
And has the water department scoped out any other potential municipal properties?
for this, I looked at, again, not town of Harwich exclusive of the water department. Primarily, we've looked at what parcels we owned first, and then this kind of surfaced, so.
Charlene?
Scoot next to here. Charlene Greenhouse, Town Planner. To me, this is excellent forward thinking as a planner. This is probably one of the only industrial zoned parcels that the town owns. This is a perfect location for this type of use. There is a movement with some neighbors at the other end of Queen Anne to expand the industrial zone, but it's all privately owned land. So the fact that we have a town-owned parcel that could easily be transferred to the water department for the purposes of this, I think is very smart and forward-thinking, and fits quite nicely with the update of the local comprehensive plan that will be coming, hopefully before I leave. You know, the starting of that, but one of the things that will be looked at is a very comprehensive capital plan. And this just fits perfectly with it, you know, with the detection of the problems, recent detection. You know, this is where we need to move something like this. We have the land, it's available. To me, this is a no-brainer. And parking can be closer.
Mr. Ballantyne, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, has asked this committee to come back with their recommendation at the January 27th meeting. So we need to make our decision of what we're going to put forward to the board at that time
On this property?
on this
Well-
property.
Yeah, but I don't think we have enough information to make a decision about what our recommendation. We haven't had any, I mean, just because we haven't had any other departments or other interests doesn't mean it's not out there. I mean, I think that I would feel comfortable saying that we agree that it, you know, should just remain, you know, for municipal use but I'm not ready. I wouldn't vote on saying that the water department should use the property just yet. Personally, that's all.
Okay. So would you like to make a motion?
No, because I'm not.
If I might, and I agree with what Kathy's saying. I think simply stated, if the committee just voted that it should be retained by the town and the selectmen for any future needed town or water department use, that it should remain. Because if they sell this and then the water department needs land in the future, or any other
course.
department,
Yeah.
they
No, I
gotta go
agree.
buy it.
Yeah.
course.
No,
Which
I agree.
to me makes no sense.
And
Art, you had a question? Comment?
He needs to talk into a
Okay.
microphone. No one can hear you, by the way.
Thank you, Art Bowden, Housing Committee Chairman. Just to make a little correction here, I did make a little impassioned speech at your last meeting about this piece of property. And I'm not against water, and I'm not against open spaces, but I'm for housing. Okay, so, but when you're rating this property, I think housing should be considered. And then I know the ultimate decision is with the Board of Selectmen. I firmly believe that. But I also firmly believe that if there's a piece of land and we can put some housing on it, because we definitely need housing, I think someone in the room should be talking about housing, and right now I'm talking about housing, and I want it to be noted that it should be considered.
Okay.
Thank you.
Art, has the Affordable Housing Trust expressed interest in this particular property?
The Housing Committee, myself, is right now expressing interest in it. This afternoon, we have a meeting with the Housing Trusts, and I don't have their agenda in front of me, but I will definitely be bringing it up to them. I think housing, like a lot of other things, needs more than just one voice in town besides the housing trusts. Now, and I could, go off on a tangent here, but I'm not going to. So, right now, I'm the Housing Committee. I'm wearing that hat. That's my hat that I'm wearing. And I at least have a voice before your committee, which I appreciate. And I just want to make that point, whether it trumps water or anybody else, that's not up for me to say.
Thank you. Dan?
I'll go with Kathy's suggestion and Charlene's idea that we don't make a decision exactly what to use at this time. I understand Arts, and I understand completely. However, what I know about properties in town and the risk that exists over 3 wells within a few hundred feet of where he's parking a bunch of trucks, and I'm assuming fuel, you got fuel, all of that down there, that needs to be moved as quickly as possible. The fact that they've listed for 80 years and not destroyed one of those wells, which is a very limited resource, is an abomination in my book. So if we could find some other industrial, I think part of it, because this is already zoned industrial, we don't have the whole zoning thing when somebody's going to put a big garage on there. Maybe had we acquired the property behind Little Shaver Lane by now, there was at least an option to move it there, still within the water recharge area, which is not as good as my book as this parcel is. But I can see us recommending that we recommend to the selectmen not to sell this property until the needs of other groups are fully satisfied and evaluated.
Okay. Kathy?
So is there no existing room on the current DPW property for water department equipment?
I haven't explored.
Wouldn't that be an important option to explore, or even the disposal area? I mean, we've got a lot of land there that's already contaminated, so, so to speak. I mean, not in a well field or a recharge area. I'm just saying, I mean, these are options that need to be explored, and, the water department's gonna have to take charge of this and really push their agenda, and they're gonna have these questions answered, because people are gonna ask them.
And if I may, retaining this as municipal does not preclude it at any point to not become affordable housing, if that's what it chooses. By retaining it as as municipal land and not recommend that it be disposed of, will keep this parcel alive for any future town uses.
And it gives time to do the evaluations that may be necessary to justify it. It's gonna have to go to town meeting anyway,
Right.
so you
I mean, if it-
better have your arguments pretty well
Yeah.
wrapped up.
If
by
it's
then.
retained as municipal land, then it doesn't have to go to town
Right.
meeting. It just
Right.
stays as it is, if that's what the Board of Selectmen chooses to do, based on your
Okay,
recommendation.
all right. So then,
Want to make a motion?
yes,
All right. I'd like to make a motion that the Real Estate and Open Space Committee, at their January 17th, 2020 meeting, recommend that the parcel at 276 Queen Anne Road, Harwich, be retained for municipal purposes under the control of the Board of Selectmen until otherwise determined to go to another department, committee, et cetera.
okay. A second?
Can I have that, wait a minute. Move that the Rios Committee at the January 17th meeting.
27th. January
this-
27th.
No,
today.
this
Oh,
meeting,
today.
at our
Oh, okay,
January
all right.
17th, recommend that the parcel be retained,
Yeah, 276 Queen Anne Road.
276. Be retained for municipal purposes
Yeah,
under the direction of the selectmen,
yeah, that's fine.
and then until,
Well,
Or is that
until
it?
further determination by the Board of Selectmen.
yep. Okay. All right,
All in favor?
did we
Aye.
second it? Sorry, I
Aye.
missed it.
Yes, Dave
I
seconded.
Okay.
second.
Dave second,
Any
sorry.
more discussion? No? Okay, motion passed.
Was the memo that you guys provided to the Board of Selectmen previously with your recommendations, was that submitted into the packet for public record?
Yes,
Yes.
it was.
I
Yeah,
just want to make reference, because to follow up with them on, about Bay Road and the other
Yeah,
one
they have it.
also states
Yes.
the case about, you know, so if I'm gonna
Yes.
do a presentation, it's all
Right.
one.
And that was July or August, I think.
oh, I think it was July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing in relation to the water department. The properties to the north of the Chatham Road well field.
Yep.
That we've been discussing, trying to take with tax title. Somebody beat us to the punch there, and they are now actively for sale for development. And, you know, development could begin any day now.
The ones across from the tank?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's two lots that are actively for sale. Does the water department have any interest in purchasing those?
I can't speak on behalf of the Water Commission. You know, any development north of our parcel on Chatham Road could potentially have impacts. You know, residential, a couple residential lots likely isn't going to be too detrimental. But of course, protecting it if possible is a better.
Well, it came up in relation to that grant money we talked about at our last meeting specifically for water protection.
Oh, right.
There's some
We've
grants.
got a motion on the floor. I think the motion,
No, that's all.
That-
passed.
Yeah, we passed.
Okay.
That was
Everybody
quick,
voted.
but we did it, yeah.
Yeah, and there was no discussion, so we're good.
We were just discussing it. Those properties would meet the requirements for that grant, and they are actively for sale. They're not too terribly expensive.
Do you know how much?
Something between 100 and 200,000.
This is off of 39,
Yeah, I believe
but they would represent just a small piece of the entire,
yes,
parcel,
yeah,
correct?
Approximately 1/3 to 1/4 of that entire parcel.
Okay, excuse me.
No, it's nowhere near that. Because those are only about 2 or 3 acres. That whole parcel's 35.
35.
yeah?
Okay, this isn't on our agenda, so we might want to have this discussion. Yeah, it kind of is water department. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Dan. I
course.
appreciate your being here and for the information you've shared with us. And it's nice to cooperate with the department in town.
Do you guys typically do land acquisition or more guided with determining the use of existing land?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we do,
Both?
Both.
yes.
We just did buys, though. Yeah, we
What's that?
don't actually do land acquisition.
Right, no, but
Right, no,
we discuss
bought-
land acquisition if somebody came before us, or if we knew of a parcel that was, that's why we were pursuing some of the parcels that were in tax lien and stuff.
Right, and I went through that extensively with Dave when that issue first arose a couple of years ago. Reason I asked is that, and I believe I forwarded the grant, which was
Yes.
super short notice. I got it, and it was really. no
Yeah,
time to
I
put
have a
together.
copy of that, and actually, I have the number of the gentleman that's referred to in that information on the website. I plan on giving him a call and see when that's gonna be up again, if it's an annual grant or not.
Yeah, because what I'd like to see is at least, a dialogue back and forth between, at least the water department and this committee. Because if it's something that you guys are aware that a property is coming up for sale, you were gonna recommend to the selectmen that the town purchase it. If it's one of those parcels that's within an area, a recharge area, it could be potential for the Board of Water Commissioners to also maybe match funds and
Yeah.
get it under, a water protection. So I just wanna kinda keep that option open.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I have that information in that website and also, yeah, we did plan on following up with that, because it seems like a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
thank you,
That's it.
Dan.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, next on our agenda, changed agenda, D. Oh, yeah, we have to
We have
approve
to approve
minutes.
minutes, yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Approval of the minutes, executive session, joint meeting with the CPC on December 3rd, 2019. Please remember that only folks who actually attended that meeting can vote to approve those minutes. So,
I move that we approve the minutes. Thank you.
second,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from the regular Real Estate and Open Space Committee session on December 13th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes, December 13th, 2019.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hang on a
Aye.
second,
Aye.
little discussion.
Oh, discussion?
Minor corrections.
Okay.
The beginning of the session began, Kathy Green's first name is misspelled. It says
Oh.
Katie.
That's all right.
And then.
Oh, I see, it's right, okay, sorry. Got the H.
In the property on Queen Anne section for the cemetery, which we just discussed, last line, I think, is, it should be needed, not need.
Oh, okay.
Just reads better.
He's talking about, I'll show
Yeah.
you.
Carol, you can,
Right here, Carol.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, these things, if you just send me an email when you get it, I can correct it before we even get
this
it.
morning, so
Oh,
please
thank
bear
you.
with me.
Thanks.
And I missed some of those myself when I'm reading them.
Motion to
Oh.
accept the minutes with the
Randall.
corrections.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Amy, would you like to join us?
Certainly. Good morning.
Good morning. Identify yourself, please.
Amy Bullock, treasurer, town treasurer collector.
Thank you for being here, Amy.
Sure.
I guess our question is to learn about the tax lien process. Can you kind of educate us
Sure.
on how that?
Go through the whole, so you get the 4 quarterly real estate bills. Once those are due, the final one would be due May 1st. After that's overdue, unpaid, any portion of it, we add a demand fee, which is $30, and send out the demand notice. That can be usually, so that last bill is due May 1st, we usually try and get those out by the end of May. Somewhere between like maybe the 3rd and 4th week. I like to have those demands due before the end of the fiscal year. So, and they're due 2 weeks from the issue date. So after that, then we can petition to take it into tax lien anytime after that. That process, typically what I've been doing is sending a notice, sending a letter saying that there's overdue taxes. In the past couple of years, I've sent 2 notices, probably 4 to 6 months apart. I'm kind of cutting back on that time frame because I think there's so many notices that go out and the mail's so expensive. So I think on this past, right now I'm in the process of working on the 2019s, anything that's unpaid.
Okay.
So I've sent out 1 letter, and then I sent the list to the town's tax lien attorney. He sends out a notice, so he's done that. And I've got to go through now and, see what's left on there, and he'll start the whole process. So once all those notifications go out, the next step is to advertise in the newspaper. It
Okay.
has to be advertised 2 weeks before the taking date. In a local newspaper, we use the Chronicle. Yep. Yep, you have for the last years probably. So, then after that, 2 weeks after that advertisement is the taking date. So we go down, the tax lien attorney prepares those notices, the actual tax liens, and I'd go down to the registry of deeds and record them.
Okay.
What does that exactly mean?
So the tax lien,
Taking.
yeah, the tax lien means that the town has a lien on the property for taxes, for unpaid taxes, which supersedes mortgages, and we're basically first in position once we record those.
When the
So-
property eventually gets sold, if there's ever a
Right,
transaction.
exactly, yeah.
But if there's never a
something-
transaction, as
They
we know,
kind of sit there,
they
right.
sit there for
For years,
Years.
right, yeah. And then, so say, I took 2018's last year, anything that's unpaid for 19, I can subsequent automatically, we don't have to do another taking. So each year consecutive that's unpaid gets added to that tax lien account without any additional, notification to the registry of deeds. It's just kind of an automatic process.
All right. You were gracious enough to give us a copy of the current list.
Yeah, I printed out a new one this morning, too.
My question, naive as I am about this, so excuse me, but, there are properties on here, it says 2002. Are you
Right.
telling me that they've been on tax lien since 2002?
A lot of those 2002s are actually, they go back further than that. I think the oldest one that I can't even say.
Some of them have.
Probably back into the 70s anyways. The list says 2002 is because when we converted to Munis, the computer, the software that we're using now, we did that in 2000. For the first 2 years, the treasurer at the time did not start processing liens through Munis, and I started that in 2002, which is why there looks like there's so many for 2002. They're actually all various years, 2002 and previous. Which I do have old spreadsheets on those if you actually wanted the dates of how far back those go.
So what's the process within the town sort of government as to,
I can give-
do they have like an
email you a copy of this.
investigatory, area that follows through on these,
So,
or?
a few years ago, what we did is we hired another attorney. So she came down, we went over the whole list of tax liens, and she kind of picked ones that she thought we'd get payment for, and started, sending them letters. So she's probably got, I would say, somewhere between 20 and 30 that she has been working on. We foreclosed on a couple since she's taken them. I have a couple, probably another 6 or 7 that are actually in land court now, filed petitions to foreclose. It's just a lengthy process. I think they've got, my understanding is they have 2 title people that work in the land court for title searches, and it's just takes forever. There's 351 cities and towns, so it's like, yeah.
Well, could you explain the foreclosure procedure to us?
So they send a notice to the owners that they're going to foreclose, and eventually, once that happens, once they we sign another whole thing that has to be sent up to the land court. Once that happens, then they will get a date. Eventually, once they've done all their title search work, they will get a date, and they have to appear and kind of state they're going to pay it, They're, you know, if they want to have a payment plan, they can do that. You know, it's very brief once it gets to that point, though, the payment plan. They've got to kind of make a plan pretty quick. Like, we have one now that's active in there. We've given him an extension to the end of, I think it's the end of February, middle to end of February. And if he doesn't pay, then that's it. So the town forecloses.
What happens if they don't show up to the court? They just-
I think it's an automatic, I think the land court automatically will, yeah, enter a judgment for the
At
town.
what point do you decide to foreclose? Is it like a certain percentage of value? Or
Yeah,
just-
it really hasn't been right now. The ones that she has been working on are people that, for the most part, they're second homes. So we figure, you know, well, if you can afford a second home, you should be able to afford to pay the taxes. And if you can't, then, you
So
know.
it may even just be $30,000 on a $500,000 home.
Yeah, they vary. I mean, the outstanding balances vary widely. I mean, some of them are just a couple of years, and then, so maybe they were taken back in 16, or so maybe they had a bad year or whatever, but, you know, and then everything else is current. Those aren't the ones that we're after right now. The ones that were, you know, that are in foreclosure right now have been years without paying.
Well, there's some on here that owe over $100,000.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Are we actively going after those?
Initially, she had picked the ones that, she thought we could get the money for. That it would be, you know, kind of the biggest bang for the town's buck, because, I mean, we're adding her fees, we add to that tax lien property, but, you know, eventually, you don't wanna keep doing that for a property that you're probably never gonna get the taxes for anyway. So, she's been working on ones that she thought were more viable.
Well,
So,
when you've got a piece of property, the taxes due on it far exceeds the land
The
value.
assessed value.
Yeah.
You're never gonna collect the taxes.
right.
Wouldn't you foreclose on it so the town could either A, resell it or, and capture some of it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or use it for, you know, a
Yeah,
municipal purpose?
You know, honestly, it's kind of a matter of time too. How much time, you know, we have to like kind of go through the list and pick and choose and, you know, I mean, if there's properties that somebody, you know, that the town, you know, directs me to foreclose, you know, to enter that, then I will, for sure.
Who directs you to foreclose?
Typically, it's been the town administrator, yeah.
So one other question, that it appears from our research as a committee that there are a number of properties that are not assessed taxes essentially. Is there any way that we can assess those properties' taxes?
Parcels that would be more of an assessor's question. These are parcels that are known, or, I mean, have they been?
Well, I'm thinking of, say, the sandpit parcel off Jay-Z Drive where
Oh.
there's
Parts of it, yeah.
and
Parts of it are
all-
untaxed, yeah, that would definitely be more of a question for the assessors.
I mean, I understand owners unknown is a major problem as far as collecting. The other one I don't quite understand is miscellaneous properties where you know the name of the owner and the amount of taxes owed, but you don't have a location
We don't have,
for it.
yeah, that's sort of more of an assessor's question also. These are people that, because several years back, and I can't remember the exact year, the assessor sent out a notice to all the known owners of miscellaneous parcels and said, do you want to still be taxed or not? Because we don't know where this property is. Most of them said no, and they were dropped off the tax rolls, but several of them said yes, because probably they do know where they are, they're just not coming forward with their survey and stuff, because if they do, then
They have
maybe
to
that
pay the
parcel
taxes.
that's, you know, valued at 5,000 could
Right.
be 60,000 or something, so. They wait until they're ready to do something with it, and then all of a sudden, oh, look at this, I found it.
Well, that seems fair
Yeah,
to the rest of us.
Yeah.
When I've talked to Donna about this, and you'll notice that the miscellaneous properties are all assessed as being 1 acre,
Oh,
okay? And it could be, as in the case of the sand pit, and, you know, that may be 30, 40 acres. he may be paying taxes on.
I don't believe
Or
it's
could
assessed
be paying
at-
taxes
at-
on 1 acre.
I don't believe
rather
it's
than-
assessed at all, though. And then there's an owner who claims ownership and, you know, posts it as private property and uses it, and, there's no taxes for decades. Doesn't seem right.
Well, it seems like the tax lien list doesn't ever get smaller.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you know, we've made a lot of progress, believe it or not, with, you know, ever since that tax lien sale was advertised, we had people coming out of the woodworks, and a lot of them are, like, it's almost a relief to them to have that pressure and say, okay, I do have to do this now. And they get it done, and they're just, wow, I got it done, you know, I'm not behind. But every time that happens, I mean, we might get, you know, several payoffs in a year, but I'm adding 20 to 25 every
Right,
year.
exactly.
This actually, this year was, I think I only added 16, so that was really good. But I'm definitely bumping up that time frame, so I think people are starting to get it, that it's not gonna just kinda,
Go away.
yeah.
So what would you say the percentage of the list, let's say the list has a couple hundred names on it or whatever, or properties. What percentage would you say might be estates where, you know, sort of people have lost track?
Yeah, it's percentage-wise, I'd kind of have to look at the list, but it's probably a fair amount. I mean, so a lot of these are very old. The more recent ones are definitely more ones that we can get a better handle on. And it is a lot of the time, you know, somebody has died and the siblings are fighting, you know, about who's going to pay the taxes or what they're going to do with the property. Somebody wants to keep it, somebody doesn't, but one person isn't going to buck up and pay all those taxes when it's benefiting the rest of them. So we do have a lot of those too.
And the town just doesn't have the
Resources.
resources
right,
to
yeah.
really pursue these in a very timely manner.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, we're trying to get better, but it's just, you know, we're picking and choosing, you know, we're maybe really actively, aggressively going maybe 5 to 7 a year.
Which is
Which
such a
is,
small
you know, when you're
percent.
adding 16 or 20,
Right.
yeah, it's not,
Seems like
yeah.
a losing battle.
Right, it is, it kinda is. What we really, I mean, and like I said, most of these are so old, and they're really not even, they're hopeless, basically. A lot of these properties aren't even currently taxed. That's, you know, they fell off.
What does that mean,
But
they
yet we
fell
still
off?
have, well, they're just, you know, maybe they were those miscellaneous parcels that are no longer being taxed. Maybe they were combined with other stuff, but nobody ever checked to see if those parcels that they were combining. And they're just so old that there's nothing is ever gonna happen with them. But to actually go through and weed those out, it's like more than one person's full-time job, you know? It's a lot of work.
And would you say the properties that are on the tax lien list, there's a good percentage that are really properties that are sort of just landlocked?
Yeah, most of it's
lots
land.
from way back that don't necessarily have any
real
developable property.
Right, yep.
They're undevelopable, a lot of them, right?
Yep.
The wetlands or something.
Yep. I mean, probably more than 90% of it is just land, not, you know, they're not
Just
homes.
they're not
Yeah.
homes.
Yeah.
My only comment is at the current feelings in town about the recent tax bills, and with town meeting coming up and all the expenditures that are to be voted on, a lot of people are going to look at some of this and say, why can't we get some of this money
Right,
to help pay for some of these new expenditures?
right.
Whatever happened to the idea of companies who offered to buy the properties and then resell? Did that just go?
Yeah.
By the
that
wayside.
That was not fun.
Met with a lot of resistance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was met with
yeah.
a lot of resistance. Yeah, there were picketers outside.
Yeah.
That was,
yeah.
so, I mean, the general feeling was not to do it that way. You know, maybe to pick groups of parcels, but even the main company that had been looking at the list, I mean, they weeded out so much of the stuff that they wouldn't bid on because so much of it is just not good.
So out of this $6 million plus change. How much is really, truly,
I would-
do you think could be recovered?
Maybe a third. I mean, that's how much old stuff there is in there that I just don't think we're ever gonna see.
Yeah.
And I just, to get it off the tax rolls is just, it's a DOR process that I haven't even investigated yet, truthfully.
Well, I'm just thinking about, as long as it stays on there and the property is got more due in taxes than it's actually worth, the town has the opportunity to take that property and use it for municipal purposes. Some of the parcels that we've been looking at are precisely in that situation, particularly stuff around Chatham Road and, the wells and so forth.
There's a number of these that, the town might be looking to buy and pay hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for if somehow it's settled privately and they come back on the market, which is happening. Just speaking about that a few moments ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's some way as a town we can get together a process where we're actually able to take some of these properties and use them for housing, for water protection, for conservation, as we've identified for the past few years, it's very valuable to the town and might end up saving us millions
Right.
in the future. So we're really trying to find a way to work with staff to move forward with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we could recommend to the cows come home to the Board of Selectmen, we think we should do this, we should do that, but what's the actual process? So if we've identified a parcel, okay, the water department was just here, they're interested in a potential parcel up in North Harwich, near the Robbins Pond area, okay? So, and it's in tax lien. What can we do as a committee to move that forward? What are the steps? I think that's what Jim's talking about. What can we do?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could definitely get it going through the foreclosure process. I mean, that's easy.
And what would that take, though? Does that take a directive from the Board of Selectmen, town administrator? What does that take?
I could just start it. I mean, I could start it with our tax lien attorney. I could just say, okay, we want to file foreclosure on this property. I mean,
Did we
it's-
know
yeah.
that?
No.
We never knew that. How many years have we
And
been
we've
talking about this?
batting that around, yeah.
Okay, so that's a step.
Mm-hmm.
Is that,
Whether or not it's going to be a good step. Only because once it gets to that, it's $515 to file in land court. So so that's relatively small. We do that, and with that, like I said, the whole title search process. It's not like it necessarily could be a speedy process that way.
Right.
But if there are other ways of, like eminent domain, then that's not. I don't really know that much about
yeah,
that.
I mean, this particular parcel has a hefty tax bill, right? It's 70,000 or something,
Can't
if I remember correctly.
I can't
The
remember.
the value is fairly limited. I believe it's assessed at 150 in that range.
Right.
The water department really wants it. They're actually trying to put another well there, so it's an important municipal use. Is that something we could vote on as a committee to have the foreclosure process started, or request that? I mean, I think we should do
Well, and
that.
so if she starts a foreclosure process, okay, that also could mean that the owners could come forward and pay the taxes, and
Yeah.
then it ends the
That
process.
ends the process.
Right.
Right.
Which is, I think, what we'd like to see is
Right.
just some movement, because we can take it off our list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing with all parcels down in Chatham Road.
Right, yeah, there's really a number that are.
Same, it's another hotbed
that are
for
important.
water protection.
Mm-hmm.
But what if,
And it
if-
opens up a whole bunch of things for housing trust,
if
if
today
that
we
makes
could-
sense as well.
take this
But-
vote and send away with one action item and see if we could make one thing happen.
Mm.
Charlene, you have a comment?
I understand what you want to do, and I respect what you want to do. It's not on your agenda to do it. So you really can't take a vote, but if you, just kind of consensus say, hey, there's some properties that we would like Amy to start, working towards foreclosure, that's appropriate, but you can't take any kind of a formal vote because you have nothing on your agenda regarding that.
Okay, all right, so we can,
Could put it on the agenda
for the next meeting. Okay.
I have a question with regards to the foreclosure. Assuming that these properties, obviously tax lien goes to the top of the bucket with regards to, going over any other liens or mortgages or stuff. When you're going for foreclosure, this is assuming that there's no other, like mortgages on the property? Because like, if you go for foreclosure, then obviously the town is going to own the property
Right,
afterwards.
yeah.
And in a traditional foreclosure with a lender,
Right.
the lender will own the property afterwards.
Right, yeah.
So-
Typically, these properties don't have mortgages.
Okay.
Because the properties that are bank, that if
So
somebody has,
old.
the banks are paying those taxes. Because they don't want to be under us. They don't want to
Okay.
be in second
Okay.
position to the town.
That makes sense.
So if a property has a mortgage on it, those taxes are getting paid.
So those are probably not the properties that you would actively go and
Right.
foreclose on, because the bank is actually.
They're paying them,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that we're trying to work with people, that when they don't have a mortgage and their taxes are unpaid, go get one. You're paying 16% to the town, when you're gonna pay it eventually, and you can get a mortgage a lot cheaper than that, so.
Yeah. Huh. Any other questions for Amy?
No, that was very helpful.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much,
much.
Amy. That
If you
was
want, I'll
really-
email you a current list, just so you
Sure.
have it updated. Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much.
Alrighty, thanks.
Okay, Mike, Charlene, would you like to join us at the table? We'll now have a discussion about the update on the property located at 0 Cherokee Road.
I'm gonna, if you would take one and pass it down.
Also known and referred to sometimes as Walker's Woods.
AKA this, AKA that.
Yes, well, yeah.
So, Amy Questle from Copeland and Page reached out to me. When Amy was asked to do a zoning determination, she did not.
Can we just back up a
Yes.
moment for folks at home?
Yes.
That they would understand
Yep.
that we've applied for
Yeah,
community preservation,
to purchase this
Funds to
property.
purchase this
Right,
property.
Right.
an
And
appraisal was done.
I'm
Okay, go
getting,
ahead.
I'm getting to that. So, part of the appraisal, a zoning determination was requested from Copeland and Page. What Amy Questle from Copeland and Page provided was a zoning opinion, not a determination. There's a lot that goes into a zoning determination, and that information was not available to her. So, the zoning opinion that she provided, from what we can gather, was never given to the appraiser, because there were a number of questions that were remaining. And if you look at what I just gave you, the very bottom, the burden of proof that a lot is entitled to grandfathering protection is on the applicant. So what this piece of paper that I just gave you runs down is, in the zoning world, it's up to the applicant to demonstrate to us as either the building permit of, person or what have you, that it is a protected grandfathered lot. Is it an isolated lot? Does it have grandfathering protection? Has it ever been held in common ownership with a parcel next door? That's not something we look for. We need that information from somebody before we can make that determination. The burden of proof is not on us to prove that it's buildable. The burden of proof is on the owner of the property to prove that it is buildable. And that information Amy did not have when she did what we're now going to call a zoning opinion rather than a zoning determination.
Who does the zoning determination then?
Ultimately, it is the building commissioner, but he needs all this information as well.
Right.
No one, as a former zoning official in another community, when somebody come to me and say, is my lot buildable, I'd say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? It's like, you need to prove to me with documentation that this lot is a buildable lot. based on the information you provide me, I'll then look at it and make a determination whether I believe, based on that, information, that it does pass the test as a grandfathered lot. In Massachusetts, if you have a single lot or an isolated lot that has been held in single ownership since a zoning change took place, it can be as small as 5,000 feet and 50 feet of frontage. Of course, that goes way, 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 way back. Most of what we see today are 10,000, 20,000 square foot lots. We have a number of those that we know are grandfathered by virtue of just, how they've been sold off. But they still need to give us documentation that it was never held in common ownership with another parcel. There's only a 5-year window, if it was held in common ownership, to be able to have that lot be a buildable lot. So there's a lot of information that we need, that town council, whoever's making that determination, that they need before they can render a lot buildable or not.
So it seems like, I'm still trying to understand how the appraisal got messed up, because it's debatable and it would need to be proven that there are 2 buildable lots there. But how is there any argument against there being 1 buildable lot? 6.5 acres with plenty of frontage.
It doesn't have plenty of frontage, though, based on what we have for information. Again, the burden of proof as to buildability is on the owner of the property.
What's the frontage requirement?
I don't, under the Six Pond Special District, I think it's now 300 feet.
But wouldn't it be grandfathered because it's not a subdivision?
I don't know. The burden of proof is on the applicant owner to
I know
provide
that,
us with
yeah.
the information.
So, but how did the appraisal, because, if you own that property,
Uh-huh.
you'd be pretty disappointed if it was appraised at 87,000.
Because he didn't have he or she, whoever did the appraisal, didn't have the necessary
We
information
can't
to
discuss
determine.
the amounts.
Yeah. There was no information provided. If I was looking at it as the appraiser did, I'd be making the same probably generalization that it's not a buildable lot because they don't have all the information. And it's not up to them to get that information unless you want to pay somebody to do all the title research, all that kind of stuff. And that's not necessarily what we're responsible for. It's up to the applicant or the owner of the property to provide that information. We get people coming in all the time. Is my lot buildable? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. Unless it was created last month under 40,000 square feet with 150 feet of frontage and met all the requirements, I know it's a buildable lot. But if it's a lot that's 10,000 square feet, I can't tell you if that's a buildable lot. You need to demonstrate to me that it is.
Right.
I'm not going to go into this list, but you've got it.
It seems odd that, if I was trying to buy that property and, went to the bank to get a mortgage to buy it that somehow an appraisal would red flag that at some, drastically reduced value. It just doesn't seem like that would happen in normal settings. So it seems like.
Yeah, it would happen in normal settings. If you are going to purchase a vacant lot and an appraisal is done, unless the appraiser has the information to say that, yes, this is a buildable lot, they're going to determine most likely that it's not a buildable lot. So it's not worth as much as if it were a buildable lot.
Okay. Kathy?
I just wanted to go back a second. You mentioned something about a 5-year time period.
Yeah,
Can you explain that
if,
to me?
yep, if you look, and it's spelled out here somewhere, I know I just saw it. Lots that are held in common ownership with adjoining lots on the date a zoning amendment renders, the nonconformity receives a limited protection of 5-year period. So if you own 2 lots, and they're 20,000 square feet, and then all of a sudden the zoning in that area goes to 40,000 square feet, you have 5 years of protection that you can build on that second lot. If you've already built on one and you want to build on the other one, you have 5 years of protection under
Yeah,
Mass
so-
General Law
Okay, so that's like you're just grandfathered in for 5 years.
for 5 years.
And so that must affect a lot of those properties,
Yeah, it can.
yeah.
And that's why, we need more information, whether it's town council or the building commissioner or myself as the town planner, we need way more information regarding this parcel.
Can I ask why nobody asked us for more information before we got to this point?
Again, the zoning opinion provided by, which I don't know if you've seen, I saw, and raised the question about grandfathering, that I don't believe that information was passed on to the appraiser.
Okay.
So I guess the real question is there a way forward that we can get a reasonably accurate appraisal in the next month?
Until the owner of the property provides this information, no, in my opinion. We need this information, anybody needs this information to make a determination as to
We were
the appraised
told,
price, whether it's buildable.
Okay, maybe I should.
Well, as a next step, so Michael Locke, Harwich Conservation Trust, I'll deliver this correspondence to the attorney of the property owner today, and let the attorney know that this is the information needed to move forward.
And we need to let them know that I attended the CPC meeting last night. They graciously allow us until February 4th to provide all the information and the appraisal, which is 3 weeks and counting.
It's gonna be tough. Tight.
I mean, it's been a long procedure to get to this point and to have all this happen near the end. It's crunch time. So it's up to the owner. I don't know what else to say.
It is up to the owner, you're
It's-
absolutely
it's-
right.
And I would just mention to this committee, if in fact everything should fall into place by this February 4th meeting date, we would have to have a joint meeting in executive session with CPC, which means we would need a quorum for sure on our committee. We could consider that date for our next meeting, for our meeting date in February. So we could meet in executive session with CPC, and when that is over, adjourn executive session, and then open our regular session at another location. And that would be our February meeting.
And that date is February 13th, correct? That night of the CPC meeting.
No, they've given us to the 4th.
Are they having a meeting on the 4th?
We have to, from what they said last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
The consensus was as long as there was an update, that the appraisal would likely be available, then it could be considered at the very latest at the meeting on
The
the 13th.
13th. But the 4th is really,
Just a
Yeah.
quick question. An updated appraisal, okay, does it have to be paid for through the town? Does it have to be a town
I can't answer that.
paid appraisal?
I mean, it would make sense to go back to whoever did the original appraisal and say, hey, we have this additional information.
True, but is there something that says that it has to be paid for by the town? The appraisal? Does the town not accept an appraisal if it's not paid for by them, is my question.
An outside appraisal.
Yes.
I think that that would be a question for the town administrator, but I would say that given there's a section within the appraisal that says intended users, if one of the intended users is the town of Harwich, wouldn't think it would matter who the funding agent is for the appraisal.
Okay.
we can check with the interim administrator, just to clarify that and make sure we got it right.
I'm just looking for some alternatives,
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
I just have a quick question, and I don't know, I mean, obviously, Charlene, you can stop me if it's not appropriate, but because we're having all this issue with the not having enough information, and it's, the burden of proof, it lies on the seller. Because they have not provided the information to have an accurate appraisal, then they cannot market the property as developable land.
They can market it
Fine.
however they want. I mean, we've had a number of people who, before you all were interested in it, come to,
Right.
come to community development and say, is this a buildable lot? And every time we go, the burden of proof is on you to
Right.
determine, to give us the information we need so we can make a determination as to whether this is a buildable lot. So anybody who came to our window, this same thing was said.
Right. So until the seller or the owner
Mm-hmm.
provides this proof to get this more accurate appraisal, then
They
they're
can,
in the same boat as we are, because they can't say, market the property as, two lots, two developable.
they can market however they want.
Well, okay.
But whether
They
it's
can't
true
move
or not,
forward. Yeah, they
you
can't.
know, or
Okay.
accurate.
Well, similar to the two parcels that are for sale on Route 39 across from the water tower. Those have not been accepted by the town as lots.
I'm just,
From the assessor's
I,
perspective.
I,
Has
I
that been
beg to
changed?
differ. That went through the subdivision control laws. The planning board approved that subdivision. It's an approved subdivision, therefore those lots are buildable once the road is, or driveway, or whatever they're doing there, I can't remember.
That's a change, because they were not assigned map and parcel. I think.
If it hasn't been
They can't be
recorded
changed.
yet, the plan has to be recorded. I don't know for sure if they've recorded the documentation.
Because it was a question of ownership. Whether they really owned it.
Kathy?
Just from like a layperson, like if I was a seller, I might not know a lot of this information to provide it. So as a seller, I would have to rely on an attorney, I would imagine, correct? Is that, I mean,
Or an engineer.
an
or an
engineer, you have to
engineer
get the lot surveyed as
to-
an engineer.
to
and then-
provide the information to an appraiser, is that sort of the understanding? Because I certainly wouldn't know this if I was selling this property.
Can I ask Charlene, if you know what, the class is that it's labeled as right now?
I think it's classed as a developable parcel.
Okay, so.
But generally, all parcels are classed as developable
Until
until
proven.
such time as it's proven that it's not developable. Yeah. Yeah, the assessors don't make a determination if something is buildable or not.
Right.
Or I should say, not buildable. They assume it is buildable. And we get people, well, I'm being assessed that it's buildable. It's like, well, the burden's on you to demonstrate that it's not, if you believe it's not.
Okay, but on retrospect, if they believe it is, because they're being taxed as a buildable lot, then they go forward and say, like, try to put it up for sale
Yep.
as a buildable lot.
Mhm.
Then they're not actually doing anything wrong, because they are under the assumption that it is. And then somebody, either purchases the lot or has it under contract with contingencies, and then they go to you with plans to build, and then it's determined that it's not buildable. Okay.
Then I hope they get out of that P&S agreement
Well,
real
that's
fast.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this day and age, I wouldn't buy a piece of property unless I have all that information.
Right.
Mike, have you come across this before on, say, the Cornelius Pond parcel? Did that have a subdivision plan, or how did that get assessed at what it was assessed for, so the town could participate in that?
Harwich Conservation Trust worked with a surveyor engineering company to evaluate the subdivision potential under the 6-pond special district zoning.
Right. So that's essentially what needs to happen.
Well, you
In a
have an
different way.
engineering, you do have an engineering report on this property.
And the engineer does
Seller
agree.
says that their engineer has reviewed it,
Okay,
so it remains to be seen if that will be channeled from the attorney to the town as the next step.
okay, all right. We need to move along, so if there's no other question or discussion on this, thank you very much. Charlene, thank you very much for
You're
your
welcome.
input.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mike. Art, we have to wind up pretty quickly. Is there anything you'd like to bring to the table?
I had my 3 minutes. So.
Well, I can allow you 2 more if you'd like. No? Okay. then I would take, anything else?
We didn't talk about the strategy. Would you want to talk about tax lien and orders on known property to the selectmen?
We're gonna have to put that
Table
on
that
our
for
next
next meeting.
agenda because, our time here is just about
It
up.
does seem like we figured out a little bit of a strategy to
Okay, right.
vote. You know, I think it might be more concise to vote one property at a time, but if at the next meeting we voted on that, property in North Howard and see if that can actually move forward. And then if we know that is the way it works, then we could do that on more properties.
Okay. And I would ask you all, if you do have things that you would like to have on the agenda, please let me know in time so I can post it and have it on the agenda.
So,
Especially, okay.
Elaine, is the next CPC meeting on the 4th or the 13th?
The 4th, I believe.
So
It's Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
if we're gonna be there, is that when you're gonna call our meeting to meet in executive session? Because we're gonna need to know if we're gonna have a quorum.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's, yeah, I don't know. Given the timing, it seems almost more likely if this is actually to come to fruition that the final vote might be on the 13th.
Right.
I mean,
It's really in the air at the moment.
Right, but we're gonna need to know.
I know.
So people can put it on their calendar and you can get an agenda out, so.
why would we need to have that session?
Uh,
Why would this committee need to vote?
Well, we can't meet in executive session
About-
with CPC unless we have an executive session, a co-executive session.
Yeah, but, I mean, like Elaine can come or two people can come. We just can't have more than two people.
No, we have to
No,
have
we
a
have to have,
quorum.
we have to have a quorum. If we're having a meeting,
Yeah, but we may
we
not
have to have a quorum.
Is there any reason to have a meeting?
Because you can't meet in executive session if it's not a meeting.
I think you can, as long as there's not more
I did
than two
last
people.
night.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you don't need a
I
quorum.
don't think we necessarily do need a meeting. There's nothing to vote on, is there?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think we did that last time just
Okay.
because people wanted to attend.
No, you were
No, we-
told by the town
Yeah.
administrator you needed
Yeah.
to have a quorum.
Yeah.
Or you were told by
We have a joint
Dave
meeting.
Nixon.
We were told we had to have a joint meeting.
Right.
Okay. Oh,
So if we have to have a joint meeting, then we need a quorum.
for some reason.
If
yeah.
we're just making an appearance to update, then it doesn't have to
So I
be
guess
a
we
meeting.
don't- We don't necessarily know either way. I can't think of any reason why we'd necessarily need to vote on anything.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Anything else? Nope.
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn?
Well-
Second?
Oh,
So what about the next meeting date?
Well, I have it on the calendar.
Valentine's Day?
No, it's the third.
It's the third.
Right, it's the 21st?
21st?
February. Yeah, it's the 21st of February.
I will not be.
I will not be here.
Okay, then we're not gonna have,
Well, we got
well,
Jim,
yeah.
and
the
Carol
rest
and
of
you
us.
and I.
Yeah,
We
okay.
can guarantee 4 of us.
Yeah.
But that may change depending on this other information, whether we get that appraisal.
You can figure that out.
Yeah,
online.
yeah, yeah. All right, let's see. Okay, motion to adjourn, seconded, everybody vote aye, aye. Thank you all very much, I know it was a